Hamster's new line of console archives is one of the most interesting official things to happen to game preservation in a long time. This runs alongside their Arcade Archives line and basically allows them to take a game from any previous platform and bring it to any current platform. So right now we have Ninja Gaiden 2 on NES, or 8-bit console should I say, and Cool Borders on PlayStation, or 32-bit console. And these are releasing both on Switch 2 and PS5. So PS5 gets an NES game, Switch 2 gets a PlayStation game. Really exciting stuff, and the possibilities are endless. We also know there's a Famicom Doraemon game coming, Sonic Wings Special on the PlayStation, Monster Rancher Hopabout of all games, and in Japan only, UFO A Day in the Life, which is a really cool game, which unfortunately is not getting localized. So right now we've only had NES and PlayStation games, but this could extend to PlayStation 2 and Xbox and GameCube and Sega Saturn and Dreamcast. In fact, Hamster released this image showing releases going up until 2009, so PlayStation 3 and 360 and Wii stuff is guaranteed. That's nuts! But that's not the focus today. Right now, I want to focus on the emulation quality because this is a big deal. The PlayStation 5's PS1 emulator is, quite frankly, awful. They render everything in a high resolution, which maybe some people like, but personally, I really don't like this for PS1 games. It creates a really jarring juxtaposition between the 2D elements and the 3D elements, so things like pre-rendered backgrounds and HUDs stand out so much from the very clear models, and those models were never meant to be seen in this clarity. They were meant to be blocky and sometimes a little bit sprite-like in their appearance, and so when you make them 1080p or 1440p, I think it looks really ugly. And in many games on the PS5 emulator, there are also performance issues like bad frame pacing. And while some of these may be due to the original console running like this, there are many which just frankly are not. And when it comes to options, the rewind feature is nice, that's very nice actually. And you can now switch between NTSC and PAL, which wasn't the case at launch. However, the video settings are just atrocious. They give you a bunch of aspect ratios which don't even apply to PS1 games, so they make very little sense. And then the screen filters. I don't know what they were thinking here. Default's just the standard one. Modern gives you a higher contrast, and then there's classic arcade and modern arcade. And do you know what that means? Because I have no idea what those mean. Basically what they mean is very poor CRT filters that blur the image and just give you something that looks nothing like a CRT. So the experience on PS5 is not very good across all of the PS1 games. I would not recommend paying £7.99 on any of these. However, there is one workaround. On PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita, you can buy the original PS1 games, which run better on those systems, may I add. And they are also half the price, but your purchase from the past continues to PS5, and so you can basically buy anything at half price if you buy it from PS3 or PS Vita, which is a funny workaround. And so this brings us to Console Archive's Cool Borders. This goes for £9.89, so it's a bit more expensive than the PS5 version, but it is infinitely better. And I should note this version of Cool Borders is also coming to PS5 on Valentine's Day. Right now it's a Switch 2 exclusive, but it will be on both platforms. So PS5 users, if you're choosing between the standard PS1 classic Cool Borders and Console Archives, it is a no-brainer which one you should go for. And let me show you exactly why. So first things first, Console Archives renders things like a PS1 would. You get these nice, chunky pixels which fit in with everything else going on screen. And they are scaled so well. Let's just put them side by side for a moment so you can properly appreciate the difference here. Maybe you do prefer the PS5 look, but I certainly do not. I think that's overly smooth and just looks strange compared to everything else. Whereas the brand new Hamster version is beautiful. This is what I want from a raw PlayStation output, so to have it on a modern console is just mwah, wonderful. Another interesting visual detail is on the PS5 emulator, almost every 2D object is dithered. If you zoom in right here on the background, you can see not only are the mountains dithered, but the sky is too. Whereas on Switch 2, everything is just presented clearly. And if you're wondering if this is actually the PlayStation version and not just some strange port, it absolutely is the PS1 version. You can go into the controller settings from the main menu and you're going to see an outright PS1 controller there. It is a little bit modified though. In the original version, which you can see on the PS5, there is the logo of PlayStation and the Sony logo on there, which they've scrubbed off on Switch 2, which is very funny, but it still maintains triangle, circle, X, and square. And you can see those icons too when you're going to customize the controls from the Hamster menu itself. You can make A and B and X and Y into X, square, circle, triangle. The performance is also a lot better on Switch 2. There are still frame drops because that's inherent to core borders on the PlayStation, but the actual frame pacing itself is much, much smoother. Just for reference, here's how it could get on PS5, and here are the worst moments on Switch 2 which just go by in a blip. As for filters, there's nothing like retro arcade and modern arcade, which are useless terms for the PlayStation. Instead, we've got proper CRT filters, and you can go through a bunch of different ones in different intensities. You can just blur the image if you want, but there's also many intensities of scan lines, and these are really well implemented. They're perfectly on the pixel grid, which again is not the case on PS5. And beyond that, there's also a customizable CRT filter. You can make it darker if you want to, or add different intensities of screen noise, so really make the image your own, and make something that looks like a CRT if you want to, or just the scan lines if you want to, or just raw pixels. As for the aspect ratio, this is mostly a 4:3 affair. You can make it smaller if you want to for even more image clarity, or you can move it around the screen, or you can even stretch it if you're a heathen. The option is there for you, but I will hunt you down. So to summarize, the Hamster PlayStation emulator is pretty much perfect. It's one of the best PS1 emulators I've ever used, and is so far ahead of the official Sony one. There was one oddity I did find though. When loading ghost data from the virtual memory card, for some reason the game went from English to Japanese just for the memory card menus, and that seems to be the case for all parts of the memory card here. Very odd. And it made me curious how this emulator is going to handle European languages, but unfortunately Cool Borders is strictly an English game. But down the line, I'll be very interested in seeing how it handles French and German. Does it go 50Hz? Does it stay at 60Hz? Guess we'll see soon. Anyway, let me know what you think about console archives. I am incredibly excited for the future of this. Not just the possibility in games, but the clarity and emulation quality is absurdly good. But we've also seen publishers like Namco and Konami and Tecmo partner as part of arcade archives. So we could be seeing the PS1 Tekken games, the PS1 Ridge Racer games, Soul Blade. And if PS2 is part of the equation, maybe games like Dynasty Warriors, the possibilities really are endless. And so basically any game in the past the publishers aren't going to want to put into a compilation and sell themselves is legible for this. And we've had some collections like Klonoa 1 and 2, which are the remake versions, but it's very possible that Namco could go to Hamster and sell PS1 Klonoa for all we know. I am incredibly excited for the future. Anyway, let me know what you think, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.